This is Suit Up Sports.
Suit Up Sports.
Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with 10-year NFL vet Frank Garcia. Frank, what a weekend, brother.
Sure was. Gorgeous weather. Got to do a little pooling yesterday. The sun was out. The guns were out. Unfortunately, so was the belly. I got to get back into that summer shape. But, great games all day. Had a great barbecue yesterday. Hung out with the family, the friends, and, you just couldn't ask for anything better. And you had the golf on, you had, the final, you had March Madness taking place.
Race, we had everything.
And everything. So, just a great weekend, and, hopefully it continues because, I think that when you look at these games, I know we're going to talk about them, at length here, but, some upsets, but pretty much chalk for the most part. Nobody really surprised that they're there, maybe one or two teams, but you just don't have those Cinderella stories anymore.
Well, and that's literally what I wanted to start off with, because we're going to get to the games, the Sweet 16, because we've got just some hell of matchups coming up this next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Excuse me. But I wanted to start off with that. Like, a lot of the analysts and the pundits over the last few weeks have been saying, starting last year that the days of Cinderella are over. And last year there wasn't a Cinderella. This year in the first round, we had a couple of tastes of it with a High Point, which was, a great game. And they played their butts off even in the second game when they lost. North Carolina school, who I know we both were pulling for them as hard as we could. And they just played great. And I love the way they play. I love their coach. We saw that upset. We saw a couple other teams. But even when those teams won, we knew that the road was probably going to end on the next round. And because of NIL and the way that college basketball and college sports works now, unless they change something, I think the days of Cinderella. Now, again, it depends on what your definition of Cinderella is. Is High Point winning the first game a Cinderella victory, or is Cinderella a team that wins and gets into the Sweet 16 or the grade 8 or whatever? To me, a Cinderella is a team that makes it into the 16 or the grade 8 Final Four. It's still great to see an underdog have a win like that in the first game.
Just so people don't get upset, it's Elite 8, but go ahead.
Elite 8, excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry. But my point is that, it's great to see an underdog win the first round, but to me, a Cinderella is a team that makes a run in the tournament. And I think those days are over because NIL has, and again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because when we get into these matchups in the Sweet 16, they're incredible. And so, not that we wouldn't be rooting for a High Point if they're taking on one of these bigger teams, but the matchups that we're going to see this weekend are unbelievable. But I do think the days of Cinderella are done.
Well, the talent disparity to be consistent, and I talked about this in football or whatever sport we talk about, especially at the quarterback position, and why guys are pros versus why the starters versus what makes them get cut or released or even make a team is consistency. All right, and being able to step up to that standard every single time, and or at least close to it, is what makes you a starting level caliber player in the NFL. It's what makes you a good basketball team if you're consistent. And I think what we're going to start seeing from here on forward, with the NIL, the way it's in place right now, is there's still going to be some teams that have some senior-led guys that are going to be able to upset one game. But to make a deep run, the depth and the consistency of some of these teams, there's a reason why these guys are in mid-majors for the most part. We might get a guy or here that slips through the crack and matures late, like a Steph Curry, who went to Davidson, and all of a sudden just, the light turned on and he became, maybe arguably, the greatest three-point shooter ever to play. But you're going to find guys like that, McCollum a couple of years ago, and, guys that are going to fall through those cracks. But team-wise, you're just seeing it. You're seeing it, firsthand, where you see a team, like High Point go out there and win, and they're playing hard. They're doing everything they can. They just don't have the firepower or the depth to continue and go. And even the team with Duke with in their first round, Siena. Give those guys all the credit in the world because they fought their asses off.
Yeah, they did.
5 guys didn't come out. They played the entire game. until the guy fell out at the end. But they fought tooth and nail, and it shows you that the starting level caliber of guy can hang. But eventually what's going to happen is that they're going to get fatigued and tired because they're exerting so much. Yeah. It's like I can go out there and pace myself for a mile, right? And that mile, I'm going to have a really good time, but my goal is going to be, at the Final Four, where these other teams, they got to go out there sprinting and leave it on the table. And by the time they're done with that first 3 laps, they're struggling to get to that 4th one and just fighting to finish the race at that point. So, I think that's kind of what we're seeing. Even teams like Gonzaga, right? I mean, Gonzaga has been a powerhouse, or at least a team that's been relevant for the last 15, 18, 20 years.
Yeah.
Mark Few has done a phenomenal job there. But even teams and schools like that, I think, are going to struggle because they don't have the NIL money that some of these other conferences do. And I think that's what we're starting to see, is that the teams with the best football teams that have the most NIL money, that have the biggest support and the biggest amount of boosters, are going to be the ones that are going to be successful.
Well, and listen to this, to that point. I saw this graphic today. Here's every team that's in the Sweet 16 and how many players in their starting 5 started their career at their school.
Yeah.
Michigan State, the entire starting 5 has started their career at Michigan State. Purdue 4, Duke 4, Houston 4, Arizona 4, Alabama 4, Iowa State 3, UConn 3, Tennessee 3, Arkansas 3, Illinois 3, and then you get into some of these schools that haven't really been here a lot, like Nebraska 2. I'm looking at the last 3. Texas, I think, has 1. So
what about Houston?
Houston has 4 of their 5.
Okay, so they have a lot of the returners coming back from last year.
All the teams with the money are getting these great freshmen, and then they're keeping the ones that don't go to the NBA. They're not leaving usually, at least not the contributors. This is just the starting 5, right? So that leads itself to exactly what you just said. And I saw Jay Williams this morning on ESPN, former Duke player, basketball analyst, and I thought he had a great idea. He said that one thing they can do to help fix this is that.
Well, hold on. Before we start fixing anything, what's broke right now?
Well,
because I think we still have as good a quality of basketball as we've ever had.
No question.
So I think we have to be careful of trying to fix things that aren't really broken.
Well, and he actually made that same point. I mean, right now, the games that we're going to see this weekend are the best, for the most part, best matchups that, Kansas.
The best quality of basketball players and teams that are the most consistent are still playing.
But what his point was, that if we do want to get to a point where these mid-majors, don't have a great year and then their players get pillaged by the big boys, and it's still going to happen. But his idea, and I thought it was a great idea, and Stephen A. Smith actually agreed with him on it, was from now on, let's say Frank Garcia plays at High Point, and you just have a great season, and then you crush it in the tournament, and you're a freshman or a sophomore. You're hitting the portal, right? Because all the big schools now.
I'm trying to make some money.
Absolutely. Nobody has a problem with that. And Jay Williams says, okay, Duke comes to Frank Garcia and says, we're going to give you $2 million to come play for Duke.
Okay.
Well, Frank's leaving, right? And you don't blame him.
Versus High Point, who would blame him?
Well, nobody does. But what he said is, if you do that, then the school that you're leaving should get 10% of that money to go help them at least fill the spot with somebody that's a decent player. So it's kind of like he used it as the same thing as what sport did he say? There's another sport that does it right now where, soccer, where you do the transfer fees. And I think that would at least help the mid-majors stay afloat instead of getting pillaged and then not having the money to replace the kid that you recruited since 10th grade. Maybe there's a kid right now, the 2-time North Carolina Gatorade Player of the Year in basketball, and I forget his name, but he plays up towards Greensboro, and he committed to Greensboro, which I thought that was kind of weird too. I mean, North Carolina's got great basketball. For him to be the 2-time Player of the Year back to back, and he's going to UNCG. Well, he just decommitted because their coach left, and now he's talking to Wake Forest from the schools. But my point is, let's say he goes to Greensboro and he has a hell of a year, he's gone, right? And you don't blame him. I would tell my sons to do the same thing. You would as well. But I do think that would be a good idea to at least help the mid-majors.
What's going to help them?
Go get some other players as opposed to
a guy from somebody else's bench.
They just left.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, but why wouldn't?
Chance than not.
But why?
But why? A better chance than not.
Yeah, but to me, it's just it's almost placating. Like pat on the back. Here's 10%. You know what? That you're not going to get the player that you just lost. You're not going to get that player for the 10% that you're given.
Maybe not.
It's literally, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. Maybe it should be 30%. If that's the case, then maybe we can start having a different conversation.
Think you're trying to get them to be even with the Duke. This isn't that. This is just saying that for the mid-majors.
But if you lost me and I'm the best player on your roster, you're not going to replace me with some guy for 10% of what I'm going to go make.
They're also obviously going to have to use the money that they have already, right? I mean, these schools.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, you go get maybe one player, and that's not, it's going to be the same thing. I just think that is the YMCA mentality, right? Not everybody is meant to be the best.
I agree with that,
and I'm okay with that. As long as we call it what it is. It's no longer amateur sports, and I think we can all agree. This is the level of degree of what is coming to being like the semi-pros for the NBA. And here's the other thing that you're starting to see, and this is the thing that we haven't talked about. I know we kind of briefly mentioned it the other day, is that the money that these college players are making, right? The only thing you might be able to get, DJ, is a European player that's coming over that's going to make a little bit more than what he's making over there, but an opportunity to showcase himself in American basketball versus a professional league over in Europe, because a lot of those players are being pillaged from, these teams. And we look at, teams like, Tennessee, or the team, Florida. Florida had 3 or 4 of them, and they didn't make it, to the next level, to the next round. They got beaten and got upset, but they had a pot full of European players that they went out there and paid, and European players, the best players, or Australian, whatever it might be, whatever league, professional league you're playing in, overseas, is you're going to have an opportunity to make 4x, 5x what you're making in a pro league over there. And if you look back to 5-10 years ago, a lot of Euros were getting drafted into the NBA in the first and second and third round, because they were staying there. But now that they have an opportunity to maximize their value, they're going to come play for for Alabama. They're going to come play for Illinois.
Yesterday.
Right, they're going to come play and they're going to make $3 million versus $300,000, and you can't blame them either. So the only thing that what Jay was, I think his intent was in the right place, but it's really not going to be that big of a difference.
Saying that it's broken. He was just saying that if you want the Cinderella stories, which some people do, some people don't, I want to see the best basketball.
I do too.
He said the same thing.
Yeah.
He just said that you're going to have to, the system has to be tweaked anyway, because some teams are spending $20 million, some teams are spending $5 million. There's going to have to be some rules. We know that. College football in particular, we see that. He was just saying that that's the only way he can see these. And by the way, UNC Charlotte will be a good example for that. They just had, in my opinion, the best hire as a coach that they've had in years in any sport with Wes Miller.
Okay. And how long is he going to be there?
Well, that's part. We'll see. But my point is,
how long is he going to be there?
Who knows? Depends how successful he is.
If he's successful, how long is he going to be there?
Probably. It depends. If he's successful year 1, he probably be gone year 2.
That's right.
And that's the world we live in. But my point is, the only way he's going to be successful is if he gets players, and the only way he's going to get players.
That's not necessarily true.
Money.
That's not necessarily true. No,
if you have no players, you don't.
Well, of course. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
But you can
develop money now. You don't get players.
You can develop players, right? It's not going to be the superstar players that you have, the 1 or 2 guys, but to play in the A10 or conference. What are they? Conference USA back there, huh?
All American.
Yeah, the All American Conference. You don't have to have superstars. All you need is 1 or 2, and you can develop that guy, or you have to go find that guy, and you can also lose that guy as well. But that may be the case. So even if I replaced him, the 10% that you're going to give me isn't going to go replace that type of value of a player.
Well, regardless, the bottom line is, because look, UNC Charlotte's a great example from the standpoint as well. In the last 4 or 5 years, they've lost 5 or 6 players that went and started on teams that went to the NCAA tournament and were big contributors. So, same as a coach,
they were role players on teams. They weren't superstars.
Bryce Williams was Nebraska's best player for 2 straight years. Young, who went to Maryland, who's now playing for the Miami Heat. So no, that's not true. They weren't role players. They were damn good players. The big center that we had that went to BYU is now at Louisville, I believe. So, it's the same as the coaches with these mid-majors. We just saw it with Sienna's coach. You talked about earlier, McNamara. He just got named the head coach at Syracuse after what they did against Duke. You just saw South Florida's coach, who had a great season, just took the job at Providence. You don't think the High Points coach's phone is lighting up right now? I guarantee it is. And again, I have no problem with that. That's the way of the world.
So what's the suggestion, or
all I'm saying is that if for the mid-major teams to still participate in this on a level that
they're never going to do it again. They're never going to do it again.
That was my point.
They're never going to do it again.
And that's why I started the conversation by saying the day of Cinderella is over.
I mean, yeah, and that's right. And I think Jay Williams, is trying to figure out a way to maybe help them, but they're never going to be competitive they're never going to be competitive to make a deep run in what I consider a Cinderella story, a Sweet 16 or Elite Eight. Right. Those days are gone.
Yeah,
those days are gone.
Yep.
Euros are coming over. You're getting players handpicked from other rosters like Charlotte that are going to be on these teams helping. And they're going to get paid. And you know what? There's a great thing that college basketball does. And you know what it's called? The NIT, right? That's what it's called, right? If you want to go compete for a championship, they have a great opportunity for you to do that in the NIT. Go win that tournament. Well, go be the best mid-major you can be, because unfortunately, this is big boy basketball. This is big boy football now. It's big boy sports, and you have to have the money. It's no longer amateur sports. We have to just call it what it is, and it's professional.
It's professional. And
there's double A's, there's triple A's in baseball.
No doubt. And look, college football and college basketball are different from the standpoint of, we were complaining, why the hell did these two teams, who was it, JMU and whoever that got into the playoffs over a Notre Dame or over whoever else to get in? Completely different, because you're dealing with multiple guys and grown men.
Right. They're going to use physicality. In basketball, it's like if I said, hey, listen, if I wanted to get JMU, if we really wanted to kind of compete at the same level, let's go play flag football. I can get 5 guys to go out there and catch, and a quarterback that can sling it around. I have a chance to compete now. But when you put into that the fact that you're going to have big boys out there that are grown men, look at Indiana, 25, 26 years old across the board. Yeah. They're going to not just compete, they're going to wear guys that are 19 years old out because their bodies aren't fully developed. They haven't had those 6 years. They haven't got their man strength. Their nuts haven't dropped. Whatever it might be. Yeah. In football, there's a lot more physicality. In basketball, there's physicality, but not to the degree and the level that you have in college basketball, college football.
And there's only 5 against 5.
Well, you need one guy to go out there and light it up.
We saw the kid from High Point. We saw the kid from
McCollum when they made that. Yeah, right.
I mean, yeah, you get one guy that can kind of. So basketball is a lot different, but I did think it was an interesting story, because our memories of the NCAA tournament they all involve certain Cinderellas, whether it was NC State or Villanova or whoever it was, and so now that those are gone,
NC State, I couldn't even consider NC State a Cinderella. They were
they had to win the ACC tournament to even get in.
I understand that, but that's not a Cinderella, because they're an ACC tournament. They're at a ACC competitor. They're a big school, right? The Cinderellas are going to be the Valparaisos, the Siennas, the teams that. We just thought High Point. Yeah, George Mason, Davidson.
Right.
Those are the Cinderellas. It's not 11 seed going in that gets hot because one of their guys was hurt or something like that. They still have the ACC recruiting potential behind them. Those are the Cinderellas that we're no longer going to see anymore.
Yeah, they're gone.
The ACC you could still see an NC State make a run. You could still see a Texas make a run. They're not a Cinderella. Would you consider Texas a Cinderella story? Well, it's the same damn thing for them.
NC State, what was it? 3-4 years ago when they won the ACC
tournament. Right.
And made
it to the Final Four. That's right. But they weren't a Cinderella. They were just an unlikely, unseeded team that didn't do much in the regular season and found their niche at the end, and they got hot at the right time. But that they still had Division I basketball players with size and strength, no
doubt. Well, let's jump into the.
They didn't have the little white guy that was the backup at his high school that all of a sudden grew 3 inches. Now he's a starting guard for Siena, right?
No, that is true. Let's jump into the games, because man, I'm telling you what, the card is unbelievable. Starting Thursday at 7:10, I believe. And we start off in the South with Iowa at Nebraska.
Well, how did you do in your polls to start with? Our brackets. I mean,
we did total points. You had 51, so we actually did a hell of a lot better than I thought, because we filled those out on the fly. And I'm screwed though, because I had Florida winning the whole thing. So
I had 27 points in the first round out of 32 possible, or something like that. 32 possible. So I lost 5 games, and then the second round I won 12. So I lost 4, And we're sitting there at 51, you're at 50. But as you point out, I had Florida going to the Elite Eight, losing to Houston. You had them going all the way to the championship and winning.
You're lucky from the standpoint is I'm going to be rooting for you to beat me in this because you have Duke winning the whole thing.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I'm going to be a happy man.
That's right.
I did 2 other pools at a bar down the road, and I didn't have Duke win.
I'm going to tell you what, man. I mean, I didn't give maybe as much credit as I should have to the bracket that Duke. I mean, but these are not blue blood programs, but they are. I mean, UConn's a blue blood program.
Listen to the 2 games in the East: Duke versus St. John's Friday at 7:10, and then Michigan State UConn.
Well, Duke, St. Louis, or Duke, St. John's, Michigan State, and UConn are the 4 teams that are in that, and those are all teams that could potentially even win the whole thing.
And every coach in that, besides Shire, has won a national championship. Shire, in his first 4 years, is on pace to
first 3 years he's
every coach.
He's out coach. He's out. He has more wins than any coach in the history of college basketball, including Kay, including Roy, including Dean and all the guys, even Wooden with what he was able to do. So his first 3 years at Duke have been spectacular. Hopefully he's learned from these crunch time moments in the game against Houston last year where there has to be a little bit more urgency to get the ball in, because that team last year, when we look back at it, might be the most talented team to ever win, other than maybe UNLV or the Fab Five when they didn't win it. But you hope that they've been able to do that, because that first game against Siena, it didn't look like the same Duke team we'd seen all year.
You how not having Gamba in particular makes them such a different team.
Well, Foster as well. I mean,
but
he is. I mean,
I just read earlier that there's an outside chance he'll play Friday night, which would be huge. But Gamba is the one, especially as a team like St. John's, because St. John's can't shoot threes. They shoot like 31% three-point.
I mean, just think of what Duke has to do when Gamba wasn't there. Is that now you have to have Boozer down low, controlling the paint. He has his back to the basket. He's not that guy. He's not a power guy that's going to box. Now, he's going to throw the ball up and get some rebounds, and he's very good with his athleticism and quickness, but he's not going to overpower a 7-foot guy, a 6'11" guy. He's not going to create that space. Where he does his damage is at the top of the key or the free throw line. When he's that point, they pass it in. He can either distribute or take the guy off the dribble to the hole and finish. Where Gamba on the defensive side can, he's an eraser on the inside. And also they can use him as rebounds and just easy dishes when they collapse and take Boozer off. So yeah, he's a big key to what they do offensively for sure.
Yeah, I agree, and he's healthy now, so at least they're going to have him against St. John's.
They're a little sloppy though this last game.
Well, they've had 17. They had 17 turnovers last game, and that's where. And I looked to see where the turnovers were coming from. It wasn't Caden Boozer. Caden Boozer's actually averaging as many, if not more, points than Foster. But the difference is just the way the offense runs when Foster's in there. From the experience he has, he's been in this position.
Do you understand why Caden Boozer's getting the lion's share of the points right now, though? Right? It's because they're doubling and tripling. The big Boozer.
They do the same thing when Foster's in there.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, that's why when Foster hits his 3-point shot, Duke's on.
I'm not talking about Foster. I'm talking about Gamba. He's getting the lion's share of the shots.
Oh, Gamba, sorry, yeah.
When he's getting the lion's share of the shots. Now the Gamba's there, you can't slough off because it's an easy alley-oop or layup with Gamba in there.
Well, plus when Gamba's in there, Boozer, it's night and day, plays a hell of a lot more aggressive. Because when he's not in there, he can't get in foul trouble.
That's right.
And so you saw when Gamba played in the second game, it not in the first half. Boozer still seemed to me to be a little lethargic.
Well, and also too,
he just said, you know what, let's go.
And what it does is it takes our entire team and it pushes them out one guy, right? So I don't now our small center that was having to come in there and rotate in. He's excellent with his hands and in space, but down low he's just going to get pushed and driven off the ball, right? But he's just not big enough. He's not. But if you put him out there on the perimeter and let him use his length and his wingspan and his quickness and his good hands, now he becomes a threat on the defensive side to get tip passes, to slow the defense down, to keep them away from trying to penetrate and getting in the inside. And it just changes their whole dynamic because it moves one guy out to the next spot.
Yeah, no doubt. So that Duke St. John's game, Patino just keeps getting it done.
I know.
The Duke can coach his ass off. And I did see a stat. You might have even been the one that sent it to me, or maybe Nico sent it, that Duke has never won the national championship without beating St. John's in the tournament.
Oh, I didn't send that. No, that's an interesting stat. So we got to do it.
You got to do it.
And that's the first step. But, I think the thing that concerns me with Duke and some of these other young teams, even Arizona's maybe a little bit different, but when you look at the youth of these guys, and you look at, I mean, these guys are 18, 19 years old and they're having to play men, right? And that's the problem. St. John's are going to come out there and they're going to try to be bullies. They're going to try to physically impose their will on Duke. Very similar to what we saw last year that gave Duke a lot of the troubles when Carolina would go out there and they would press and they would play man and they would knock guys around and they would, hard foul. And, they turned it into a slugfest. Same thing with Houston when they beat them last year. So the teams that give Duke trouble are the teams that are physical, and the teams that are going to body them up and push them around. And that's what I'm worried about with St. John's, because how are you going to fight that? Are you going to be able to answer that bell? Or are you going to be tough and go out there and do it?
That should be a hell of a game. Duke right now is a 6.5-point favorite. So we'll see what happens with that one. Hopefully Foster does play. That'll be a big addition. Michigan State UConn game 2 that night, and both those teams come in. I mean, Michigan State's playing as well as anybody in the country right now. UConn.
Well, Izzo is going to have his guys ready, right?
Doubt.
I mean, just before I talked about in St. John's, I mean, Izzo is over there beating these guys with bags and throwing balls at them and, just knocking them around to create that toughness.
Yeah, and Hurley, obviously, he's won 2 national championships the last 3-4 years. UConn's problem, because UConn's got it all. I mean, they've got a great team. They got a center who is dominant. First game in the tournament, 30 points, 27 rebounds. But they have not been hitting the 3 ball really towards the end of the season and in the tournament. Last night they had one guy that got on fire and he won the game for him. He's a senior. But my point is, like, you keep thinking, okay, one of these games, like Hurley said last night for the game, he goes, hell, he was the only one hitting threes, but last night I felt like we were hitting 100 of them because we hadn't been hitting any of them. So just hitting as many as we did, I felt like was Christmas. So you got to think that, I mean, is that switch is going to flip for them. That should be another great matchup. UConn right now, a 2.5-point favorite in that one. And then obviously the winner of those 2 games will take on each other. But what a hell of a bracket that is in the East. Let's slide to the South, where we have Iowa and Nebraska taking on each other at 7:30. Nebraska's a 1.5-point favorite right now. Iowa last second 3-point shot, and what was a fun game to watch. It was a sloppy game to watch. It was a fun game to watch. And Nebraska has just been rolling. People forget that's the same Nebraska team that started off the season, I believe, 23-0. They've had some huge wins. They had a little bump in the road towards the end of the season, but they got back on.
They had lost like 5 or like 7 of the last 12 games or something like that. And they were not hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah, they hit a bump in the road
in the Big Ten championship. I think they got beat early in that, either by Wisconsin or whoever it was.
They lost in the 3rd game to Iowa State, if
okay.
I'm not mistaken. But now they're playing great. And Hoiberg can coach. We know that. And then Iowa, you've got this guy who's been a Division II coach. He's coached in every division you can pretty much think of except where he is now. And all he does is win. And you look at their roster, and it's full of guys that he went and got from Division II teams that he's played against that he knew could play. And now he's at Iowa. He's got money. So he had to put this team together like that. And they lost 7 to their last 10, I believe, coming into the NCAA tournament. And they have a pretty easy victory in game 1. But yesterday against Florida, who you and I both thought was one of the top 3-4 teams in the country. I mean, hell, I had them winning the whole thing, defending champions, size everywhere, athleticism everywhere. And Iowa just has a way of uglying up the game. And they're not a great 3-point shooting team either, but tell you what, nobody told Big Boy that. And what's funny is he's the player that when they called the double text that offset each other, that was like, looked like he was throwing a punch and then let off. Imagine if he would have got thrown out of that game. They don't win the game. So that was, I mean, all respect to that coach. I loved his fireness when he went after Florida's coach, and I thought those 2 were getting ready to fight.
Nobody's going to back down for sure.
No, exactly. So that Iowa Nebraska game, that's old school. Like if I was talking about football right now, we'd be like, oh, Iowa Nebraska.
You're
okay,
right.
All right. That's some old school football. Well, I think that's what we're going to see in a basketball game. And then game 2 that night, Illinois and Houston. And Illinois, talking about the European players that come over, they've got 3 of the best ones in the country, including Pedro Stojakovic's son, who shoots lights out. And Houston, a few years ago when Sampson started to get that program rolling, we knew they were going to play defense. We knew they were going to, be prepared, as you said. They've got a great freshman point guard in Flemings who's going to be a top, 7-8 pick in the draft. And man, I tell you what, every time I think that Houston's going to get beat, they freaking find a way to win. I mean, that team could win the whole thing right now. And Illinois is a lot of people's sleeper pick at the beginning of this tournament. So that should be another great matchup.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, when's the last time Illinois basketball has been great? It's been since like the early 2000s when, they were up there, quite a bit, and, what they were doing. And I guess it's good to see, the diversity in college basketball, where it's not just like in football, it's not Alabama, it's not Georgia, it's not just these two teams. And I think we're starting to see that with the NIL. Maybe it's going to be a little bit more Big Ten, centric, but in basketball, I think you're going to start seeing the torch passed a little bit, the baton, where this team wins a championship, this team wins a championship, and it's not necessarily just going to be in the Big Ten. I think that you look at what Arizona and what they're doing right now, and like I said, Florida and the SEC. You have the ACC still, has the number one seed in the tournament left, and you're seeing that torch passed around a little bit. So it's not just one conference, one team, and that's where Illinois can really, they're a team right now that could shock a lot of people. They got size, they have leadership, they have a good coach, they can shoot, they play fundamentally sound basketball. They're not going to beat themselves, and they're a team that is going to have to be, the superstar is going to have to show up and beat them and do what they do, because that's the one thing that Illinois has: a lot of great players, a lot of good players, but they don't have the great player.
Yeah, and Houston's always going to play tough and physical.
Well, Houston has 2 top 10 picks.
Yeah,
and nobody talks about these kids, both of them. And the other thing that I think that is being left out in these tournaments, being able to adjust and adapt to styles of play. Houston sets the tempo because these two guys that they have. Houston, with their guards, are going to go out there and set the tempo. They can go fast, they can go slow, they can shoot, they can penetrate, right? Whatever it is, they're going to find a way. And they put 3 guys that are athletic as hell, that are tough. They're going to go keep balls alive, and they're going to let these guys, eat and fight their asses off. They play great defense, and Houston, to me, is the team that I would not want to play, because it is going to be, you would want to. You're going to have to beat them all, but you'd want to wait. Because when you're done with that game, your legs are going to be gone.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a war. And whatever team beats them is going to have to have earned it.
Well, that game's at 10:05 on Thursday night, and then let's move to the West, where we have 2 more great games Thursday: Arizona versus Arkansas. Speaking of freshmen, they're unbelievable. Acuff for Arkansas is just unbelievable. Another,
what do you have, 38 the other night?
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Everybody's comparing him to Iverson, and he's another top 6, 7 pick in the draft. Arizona's loaded with draft picks. Like we both agree, we think they're the best team in the country.
They're the most balanced team, in my opinion. They can do it all. And I think that there's 4 teams right now, when you start talking about this, that have the ability to cut the nets down at the end, with the athleticism, with the talent, with the balance, with the size, with the speed, with what they do. And I think Arizona is obviously near the top. I'm going to give you another one that I've been talking about. And I watched that game against Duke early on up in New York, and that was a Final Four matchup. But Michigan is a team that is built very similar to Arizona, and they're cut from the same cloth. They have toughness, they have athleticism, they have style, they have big guys down low. They can match Duke's size, they can match Arizona's size. They can go out there and physically compete with anybody, and it's just going to be on that given night who steps up and who's hitting buckets.
Yeah, and again, Calipari, just wherever he goes, he wins. And here they are again in the Sweet 16. That right now, Arizona's -5.5, and then the first game.
So I saw different lines. I mean, I saw Duke, and maybe the lines have changed. I'm not sure when you got yours, but I looked this morning, and Duke was at 6.5. You had UConn at 6.5. You had Houston at like 6.5, 7.
Oh.
Arizona was by far they were at 8 or 9.
I looked like right before the show and wrote them down. Duke 6.5, UConn 2.5, Nebraska 1.5, Houston 3.5, Arizona 5.5. The next game, Texas versus Purdue 7.5. And again, we were talking about Cinderellas, and not that they're a Cinderella, but I guess if you had to pick a Cinderella team that's left in the 16, it'd be Texas. They had to win a play-in game, and now they're again talking about a team that has found their stride at the right time. We know that Arch Miller can coach his butt off because he's won wherever he's been. And now that you're allowed to pay players, he doesn't get fired for it. And
who you're talking about? Sean Miller.
Excuse me, Sean Miller. Yeah, Arch Miller is his brother, but Sean Miller. But Texas, Purdue. Again, Purdue earlier in the season was thought as one of the top 3 or 4 teams.
Well, they've been ranked number 1 half the season,
and they've had a lot of injuries, but they're playing good basketball now. But that should be another good matchup because Texas is playing great basketball right now. They're playing great defense. They've got size. So, that bracket in the West is going to be fun to watch. And then Friday night in the Midwest, you've got your team that you just talked about, Michigan versus Alabama.
10.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I got 9.5.
Yeah, 10.5-point favorites right now on DraftKings. So depending on what side you go, I'm sure there's some you get at 9.5. But Arizona 7.5 on them. So maybe everybody. I need to go to the site you're at because you get a less point.
I use Score Mobile because they don't put gambling into the equation. They just put what where DraftKings is going to fluctuate as much, but.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan is 10.5 points, or 9.5, whatever you have there as well. So, I mean, the by far, when you look at the games, they're the team that is supposed to, go out there and dominate, and the biggest favorite of the weekend or the Sweet 16. And you look at Alabama. I think a lot of people are not giving Alabama a lot of credit, but I think they're the number one scoring offense in all of college basketball. They can light it up. The over and under in that game is 175. Right. I mean, that is that's an electric basketball game. But again, that's what I talk about. As I'm trying to say and reiterate with Michigan is they can win that kind of game.
They can.
They can also win a 60-40, 60-55 game. Right. They can win those style of games because of the way they're built. And it's going to be interesting to see who controls the tempo of that game because you're right. Alabama's going to try to speed you up. They're going to go up and down. They're going to be fast break. They're going to try to get the ball down, jack up threes, and see if they can make them, then knock them down and see where the analytics fall and if they can, be there to do that. But, Michigan can also slow you down. All right. And utilize their big guy down low and, the size and the rebounding. And, that's the one thing where I look at Michigan where I think they have the biggest advantage over most teams they play is on the boards, especially on the offensive side. They have 2 or 3 guys that can crash. They take up space. They're big bodies. They can either tip it out or bring it back up or kick it out to the guards for those shots.
Well, it'll also be interesting to see what Alabama does with Holloway, who didn't play in the first 2 games due to being suspended. He got arrested on drug charges. No word yet whether he'll play in the Sweet 16. Knowing Nate Oates in Alabama, the way that we've seen their track record over the last few years, when players get in trouble, they normally get them back on the court pretty quick. So I would expect him to play, but who knows? But that would be a big boost for them if he does come back because they are playing pretty good basketball without him. But he brings a scoring punch that they could really use against Michigan. And then the second game that night, Tennessee versus Iowa State. Speaking of injuries, Iowa State just won their game yesterday without their leading scorer and their leading rebounder, and pulled away in the second half and made it look pretty easy. And Tennessee, look, we all know Tennessee's full of athletes. We know Tennessee's got we keep talking about draft choices.
Bruce Pearl.
Well, Bruce Pearl ain't there no more. So
you're right. Rick Barnes from Texas. You're right. You're right. Because I saw him this week. He's on TV. Yeah, he's on TV. Yeah, no, Bruce. Yeah, Barnes. Rick Barnes. Who hasn't won a big game at Texas ever.
Or Tennessee or wherever, Clemson. I mean, he's never won the big game. But this against Iowa State is not going to be easy. And both those players for Iowa State, no word on if they'll play. I think they did say that the kid that rolled his ankle the other day, the number 1 rebounder, has a shot at playing. I don't know about the score. But again, Tennessee, athletes everywhere. They have a hard time being consistent on the offensive side. They play good defense. But you got to think if Iowa State, especially if they get those guys back, because they're playing as well as anybody too, you got to think Tennessee's going to run into a
Tennessee has always had, like you said, the athletes to be able to compete. It's the lack of consistency, that they've shown in times, and especially in big moments. They haven't have the guys. I mean, I've seen games where you go out there and you look at this team and you look at that team and like that team over there, Tennessee, has all the first rounders, right? And they're all the big guys, all the athletic. But then they go out there and dribble and they're dribbling it off their foot, or they shoot and they're breaking the back of the backboard, right? So, that's who Tennessee can be, but they can also be one of those teams that get some momentum, they get some confidence, and they're going to have a party out there. And, you could be in for a long night if you get them on the wrong night.
Yeah, that should be another good game. Like I said, I think all these games are going to be fun to watch, and then setting up Saturday and Sunday for some huge matchups. Saw another thing today that I thought was interesting. It was talking about players who played football and basketball, and they were talking about Julius Peppers, the Carolina Panthers Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. And he's the only player to ever play in a Final Four in a Super Bowl in history. And I guess the year after he had 2 blocks, I guess in the Final Four, he led the country in sacks. And I'd forgotten all about that. I mean, I remember him playing both sports, but I forgot just how good he was actually at basketball on the defensive side. A dude that just a freak athletically. But Carolina looking for a new coach, possibly. Word hasn't come down yet. We should get word on that in the next 2 days.
What do you think about that? I mean,
here's what I think.
Hubert Davis, to me, has been a pretty good coach. Has he won the big one? No, he hasn't won the big one. But what your thoughts, and I'll give you mine.
Well, my thing about Hubert, I don't think he's a bad coach either. I think where he's getting whooped is recruiting. They haven't had. I don't think they've had a top 5 draft choice since 2005.
They have,
and they'll have Caleb Wilson this year. But when you got Duke next door,
you're not giving him any grace that will get that he was injured, that he broke his wrist.
I'm talking about just since Hubert's been there, his recruiting has not been stellar at all. He got Caleb Wilson this year, but they haven't had a top 5 draft pick, I want to say, in 20 years. And that's not just Hubert, obviously. But my point is, I think recruiting is where he's getting whooped. He's got the money, but these kids are choosing to go elsewhere. And when you've got Shire 8 miles down the road who is getting ready to have his 4th straight number 1 recruiting class, and you're North Carolina, arguably the most famous, iconic college basketball program in the country, you can't keep getting your butt whooped. Now, he does have 2 All-Americans coming in next year, which I think helps his case to stay, because if he leaves, do they leave?
He has All-Americans coming in every year. They like just don't pan out. Well, so that is what's happening to me is when you look at that, it's not necessarily the coaching on the court, right? It's the battle off the court, right? The recruiting battle. The assistant coaches. Are you getting these players to come in that are going to pan out with what I'm seeing? Is that going to correlate to Carolina basketball? Just because you're a 5-star guy and you've done great in an All-American game somewhere, but does that equal what Carolina basketball is? And I think that's where the disconnect has been, is that you have these All-Americans coming in. Carolina, I mean, they may not be getting the number 1 recruiting class.
They're not getting the recruiting classes that they got under Roy, and they're not getting the recruiting classes that Duke down the road, which look, that means something. I mean, you don't think the Carolina folks are looking and going, Shire's kicking your butt?
Well, he's kicking everybody's butt right now, and that doesn't help. That doesn't help.
But the problem with Carolina is now it's not only Duke kicking their butt, it's all these other schools across the country where Carolina used to never lose players to.
So what my question would be is that because of the recruiting, or is that because of lack of funds? Because funds. I mean,
they got just as much money as anybody.
Well, are they using it?
They're using a ton of it.
Who are they giving it to?
These guys who don't pan out. That's my problem. And
so maybe they're offering the wrong guys.
Look at the starting point guard for Michigan, Cadeau was their point guard last year.
So they didn't pay him.
No, they paid him. He left because he didn't like the program. He didn't like Hubert. He didn't like the way they put the style and position they put him in. So my point is, I think it's not just recruiting; it's identifying the players that are going to fit your program. You don't see Shire recruit certain types of players that aren't going to fit, that aren't going to play defense.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying was it's the type of guys that the eyes are seeing to come in and recruit. They don't match what the system requires, right? If I'm the head coach, right, I have a system in mind that I'm going to run, right? When I have that system in mind and I'm out recruiting, that guy fits, that guy doesn't really fit because he's a little selfish. He doesn't play defense, whatever it might be, right? His attitude, he doesn't fit Carolina basketball. They're just going out there, it seems like right now, and just picking out guys that are the most talented to try to just get to win the recruiting war than building an identity with the basketball team. And, I think a lot of that has to do with the assistants, right? I mean, you look at assistants, just because you play a game doesn't mean you're a great coach at it. It doesn't mean you're a great scout. It doesn't mean you have great eyes for talent. You see a guy, he's like, oh, he's a big guy, he's fast, he's tall. Right, great. Right? Does that make him a great basketball player? No, it just makes him a freak of nature, right? So how does he fit into our program? And that's where the disconnect seems to be happening with the assistants and the recruiting process, is they're not fitting the style that Hubert wants to run.
Well, here's what I'll say.
And that's Hubert's fault, ultimately, by the way. And that's where you have to make change. Right. And if you're not willing to make change, then it's time to make change.
Here's what I will say about Hubert this year. People forget, because the last memory you have is them blowing a 19-point lead to VCU, which that, no question, had something to do with coaching. No doubt about it. Okay, we all saw it. We all saw that there was a lot of moves that he made towards the end of that I think cost him the game. But take that game away. And number one, you have to remember, I think Carolina beat more top 10 teams this year than any team in the country. And they also lost their best player, who is going to be a top 3 pick in the draft. And we saw what Caleb Wilson's done all year long when he was healthy. We saw what he did against Duke game 1 when they beat us. He controlled the first half. So
he outplayed Boozer tremendously. It looked like Boozer was a first-round player, but not a top 5 lottery pick. He looked like he was a top 5 pick. Him versus Boozer, night and day. Williams beat him hands down.
I would take Wilson over Boozer in the draft in a heartbeat. But so I think ultimately Carolina, I think they will keep Hubert. I think the fact he does have 2 All-Americans that they like coming in, they don't want to lose those guys. And I think that maybe they will make a few changes coaching wise.
What if he refuses?
Well, then they'll figure it out. But here's the other problem Carolina has is, everyone says they want to stay within the Carolina family. Well, there's nobody left in the Carolina family to go get. And there's not. I mean, there's really not. So if you're not, and then if you're going to go outside the family, Hurley's not leaving. UConn, you could go down the list. Golden at Florida, yeah, he'd be a hell of a hire for him, but his buyout is ridiculous.
Who do you want to be?
Nate Oates from Alabama.
If you're going to are those guys better than Hubert?
That's the question. I mean, Nate Oates has done a hell of a job at Alabama, and I'm sure that style would be fun to watch.
Because Hubert has not done an awful job.
He hasn't. You're right. I mean, remember last year they stumped during the season. They got into the tournament when a lot of people thought they shouldn't even get in the tournament, but then they played great in the tournament, right? So I don't think he's going anywhere this year. I do think that this is going to be a big year for him, and if he doesn't do well, I think he's gone then. But I don't think he's going anywhere. But we'll see. We should get word down on that in the next few days. Let's jump to the NBA because our Charlotte Hornets, who are just continuing to play great, 7-3 their last 10 games. They've won 2 in a row. They're in the middle of a 7-game home stand. They've won the first 2 games there, and they're getting help across the league. The teams that they need to lose, Orlando, Miami, these teams are losing. And right now, the Hornets find themselves, they're still in the 10th spot, so they're still in the play-in game. As of today, they would play at Miami, but they're only 2 games out of the 6th spot, with Miami 1 game ahead of them, and then Orlando, Philly, Atlanta 2 games, and then Toronto in the 5th spot is only 3 games. And listen to the rest of the schedule and how many of those teams we play. Talking about having your destiny in your hand as far as the playoffs go. We have the Sacramento Kings tomorrow night. Then we have the Knicks here, one of those teams ahead of us. We're not going to catch them, but still, they're a team that will be in. We would.
Well, you can make some ground up,
right?
You have to. So one of these teams that is ahead of you, you're going to have to beat them.
We're at Philadelphia. There's one that we can catch only a game or 2 ahead of us. Here, Boston here, at the Nets, at the Suns here, Indiana here, at Minnesota, at Boston, and then we finish with Detroit here, and at New York. So it's not easy. I mean, when you're playing Detroit, New York, and Boston, those are the 3 top-ranked teams in the East, and you're not catching them, but those are teams that are fighing for the number 1, 2, 3
and Boston, we left a bad taste in their mouth, up in the Garden.
Boston,
yeah, so they're going to have.
We play them here. We play them twice.
So I mean, that's not a tough. That's not an easy sledding schedule. They're gonna come with a little red ass and want some revenge, and you might get their best shot. So that's not a bad thing. It's just you got to know what you're walking into when you're going to those games. But I mean, the fact that we're even still having this conversation about the Charlotte Hornets and what they've done, I think we've talked about it earlier, and I still believe this. When they are playing, their basketball, their brand, they are as fun and as good as any team in the NBA. They hustle. LaMelo Ball has stepped up. I'm super excited, and I can't believe I've said this about him because it's just I'm one of those guys that call it like I see it, right? I mean, you're not playing, you're whining, you're crying all the time. You have no use for this, for us as fans, right? You're a guy that's a talented guy that doesn't play, right? I mean, but when you're out there playing and you're starting to develop, you're starting to learn, you're starting to mature, and I think that's the best word for him. Is it seems like he's starting to mature
as more games this year than he did since his rookie year, I believe.
Yeah, DJ, before this year, I had gone to 15 games and hadn't seen him play one time.
I'm with you.
15 games, I never saw him play. Right. So
and now he's playing. I mean, he's probably going to be the player of the week in the Eastern Conference after the week he's had this week. And I looked at those 11 games. I think the best case scenario is 5 and 6 in those 11 games because I think.
You think we only win 5 games out of the next 11?
Yeah, because I think we split with New York. We're there and here. So I think we split with New York.
I don't think you're giving the Hornets enough credit for as good as they are.
I think we beat the Kings here. I think we beat Philadelphia here. Boston, we played twice here and there.
I think we're a 7-4.
So maybe we
I think we're a 7-4.
We'll beat the Nets. We'll beat the Suns. We'll beat Indiana.
I mean, the Suns have had our number.
Well, I know they beat us in there barely.
They blew us out in Phoenix.
I think I thought they only beat us by like 3 or 4 points.
Well, they controlled the entire game. I don't know what it ended up coming down to.
Here, but you're right. They're playing good. But Indiana's had our number 2. They beat us 2 out of the 3 games. But I think we get that here. At Minnesota, I don't think we're going to get. At Boston, I don't think we're going to get. Detroit here.
I mean, it's the NBA, and here's what's crazy: we don't know, the mindset of these teams going into these games, and it's crazy to think, right? If a team just plays harder than the other team for one night because the team is taking it off, or they just had a tough one the night before and they're on the back to back game, anything can happen, right? So I think the Hornets are going to go into this stretch. And I think they're going 7-4 because I think that they're playing with a bigger sense of urgency more consistently.
Well, here's the one thing that we don't know is the fact that those last few games against Boston, Detroit, and New York, that's how we end the season.
They already have clinched. They might have already clinched, and they might be sitting.
But they're fighting for that number 1 or 2 seed. So right now, Boston,
that might be wrapped up by then, though.
That's the thing. Detroit could have wrapped up because right now they got a 5-game lead over Boston and 6 games.
Detroit's likely going to be the number 1 seed.
Then you got Boston, New York, 1 game separates them. So they could be very well fighting for that. So, Detroit here, yeah, maybe we get and Kate Cunningham's out with a punctured lung, so we don't know if he'll play, but yeah, we don't know that, but I just know that.
Well, that 5 and 6 goes to 6 and 5 real quick.
It could.
And then you sneak one of these other ones, that goes to 7 and 4 real quick.
And like I said, we're only a game out. Look, if we make the playing game, I hope we could at least move up to 9. And
you don't think we're going to make the playing game?
No, we're going to make. I'm saying we're going to make the playing game. We got like a 5-game lead over Milwaukee. We're making.
Yeah.
The playing game. What I'm saying though is I would love to at least get to the 9 spots. So we host the game here against Miami. That would be great. I would love.
There's a chance that we can get to the 7 or 6.
No question, no doubt. So we'll see. They're 7-3 the last.
And have a bye.
Yeah, they would play. Yeah,
they would have a series.
They would have a series. So we'll see what happens with them. But I tell you what, they started 2-0 on the 7-game stretch at home. If they could come out of this thing with 5 of the 7, that would be wonderful. They're playing great. Knipple continues to lead the way for Rookie of the Year. I'm going to be shocked if he doesn't win it. Now, pretty much everyone you read or see on TV is saying he's got to be the guy.
Well, they're not sneaking anybody anymore, and
right.
This is what's going to be interesting. When you're playing the Charlotte Hornets now, whether Detroit or the Celtics or Indiana or you fill in the blank, they're coming to play.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the one thing that I think us as fans can be really proud about is that there's no nights off.
You're right.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think that started with obviously the coach, but Melo, I'm going to give him credit. He's leading the way because Brandon Miller, I think, would have missed some more games. Melo would have missed some more games. And maybe it's Knipple as well. I'm not sure if it's that rookie mentality where these guys aren't going to get shown up by a rookie, but I'm giving Melo a lot of credit because I think he's the leader of this team and he's the superstar of this team. And there's some really good players that follow him like Knipple and Miller, but none of them have the talent that he has. And he's been playing lights out. He's making good decisions. He's playing better on defense.
Sure
he's hustling. He's not making bonehead shots and plays and just it's hero ball. He's playing within the system and it's his system.
Well, I think
this is his team.
I think it is his team. And I think a lot of maybe what's happened with Melo in particular is that when the Hornets went out and won the Summer League with all the rookies and they won the championship and they came in and then he saw the way these dudes were practicing and Knipple and Sion James and Kalbrand and all these rookies. I think that he might have realized, holy crap, we might actually have a chance to be good. And I think that we start off slow.
Or I might get embarrassed if I don't come and play hard
Correct.
In practice and in the off season.
Yep.
These guys are going to embarrass me.
Right. And I think that once the season they start off slow, but once they started getting going, I think he probably realized as well as the entire team that we could be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just beat OKC's butt on the road, Denver's butt on the road, the Lakers' butt on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they all started believing and buying in, which we know in any team, when that starts happening,
that snowball effect
snowballs. And right now it has, and it's been fun to watch. So we'll be watching those last 11 games. Hopefully they can squeeze into the 8th or 7th would be wonderful, but at least the 9. I definitely would like to host that playing game here. We've had 2 playing games in the last 8 or 9 years, and they've been on the road, and I think we lost by 30 in both of them. So
it was embarrassing. Yeah. We'd rather be just at home, recoup, licking our wounds.
Let's get that game at home. 2 other teams real quick I just want to mention because I know we got to go. Charlotte FC this weekend with a huge win over.
You're in love with this Charlotte FC.
You got to come to a game with me.
I've been to games.
You haven't been with me.
I have not been with you.
You come with me. You're gonna enjoy it. I have been,
and you're right. As far as the bang for the buck, you're not going to find much better in Charlotte.
This would have been the game to go to for people who aren't sold on soccer, by the way.
I love soccer.
But we scored 6 goals. I mean, the most we've ever scored. It's the most the Red Bulls have ever given up. I went 2 weeks ago against Miami, and the final score was 0-0. Couldn't they have at least give me like 2 of them damn goals to see 6 goals? So we beat their butt. They're playing great. And then, again, I mentioned this earlier in the show, but I do want to congratulate UNC Charlotte on the hire Wes Miller. I didn't think they'd be able to get it done. Those other Big 12 teams that were coming after him. So the fact that he chose to come to Charlotte, to me, shows that, number one, they opened up the pocketbook, which I read that they did. I think he's getting like $5 million, like crazy money for
Charlotte.
Coach. And you weren't going to get him for cheap because he had other big teams wanting him. So congratulations to them. Now find the damn money to give him to go get some damn players and keep some of the good ones he has right now, because he's got a few damn good ones on the team right now to try to keep. So I'm at least excited.
Charlotte is in such a funny state. Like, do you want to go get these best players to get them handpicked by somebody else? And for me to waste all this time going out there and recruiting them and all my money and all my time and all my effort, knowing that if this player turns out to be who we think he is, somebody's going to go pay him and handpick him. Or does he look at these guys and say, I love that guy and I'm going to put my resources towards him, but realistically, I need to look at these other guys.
I think it's got to be a mixture, to be honest with you. And I think that even if you do it the other way, where you develop some of these guys, the minute they have a great year, they're going to probably leave anyway. So, maybe not. We'll see what happens with it, but I'm at least excited.
It's just a tough position to be in as a coach, because trying to put yourself into his shoes, like, we only have X amount of dollars that we can spend, and I really like this guy, but if I get it for this guy, then I lose everybody else.
So it's
right?
almost like you'll use this money to get 3 solid players.
That's right.
1.5.
Solid guys are going to be here that I can coach for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
And they're going to be pretty good, but they're going to be juniors and seniors when we're making our run. And then once I get those guys, I can go get that big guy, that high name guy that puts us over the top.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but I'm excited. It's a great hire, somebody that I didn't think they'd get it done, and they did. So I want to give them a shout out. Big D, thank you, buddy. Everybody enjoy the great college basketball starting Thursday night, I believe at 7:10, and with Iowa and Nebraska 7:30. Actually, it should be a great.
Who you got in your Elite Eight?
Well, who do I have now, or who did I have?
Who do you have now? Who are you picking
right now? If I'm going to pick,
because that'll happen before we play.
Let's do it right now. We're going with the spread or without.
I would say just without. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. Who's going to be in the Elite Eight?
All right, I'm going to go St. John's. I'm going to go Michigan State. I'm going to go Nebraska. I'm going to go Houston, although I think Illinois could definitely win that game. I'm going Arizona. I'm going to go Purdue. I'm going to go Michigan, Iowa State, and that's my picks.
All my bracket for my Elite Eight is still alive except for Florida. Every one of my teams, every one of my teams that I pick, and I'm not changing. I just have to come up with one for the South. Yep. And I have Duke, I have UConn, I have Houston, and I'm going to take Iowa to upset Nebraska. Okay. And I'm going to take Iowa because I think, the thing that may hurt them the most is having the layoff, honestly, to cool off, because they're as hot as anybody. And after that big win, they could go out there and do some damage. And then I'm taking Arizona, Purdue, Michigan, and I guess Virginia's out too. Iowa State. Iowa State would be my other team.
Yeah, Iowa State's got to get those guys back at some point. Tennessee may still be able to get by Tennessee without them, but for them to do damage in the Elite Eight and move on, they're going to have to get those guys back. But it sounds like the guy that got hurt.
I'm going chalk pretty much. I'm going Arizona, Purdue, Michigan, Iowa State, Houston, other than the top one here, which is Iowa, UConn, and Duke. I'm going chalk.
All right, we'll see what happens. Everybody enjoy the games. Hope your pools are doing pretty good. Ours are better than I thought they were when I went to go grade them this morning. So we're hanging in there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.